Hey, this is John North. I'm the host of Startup Secret Show for entrepreneurs and founder of Evolvepreneur.app. I'm here to introduce you today to Jamie Atkinson, who's going to explain a very unique opportunity that we're using to actually expand and grow our business. Jamie's a specialist in what we call podcast closing. So I'm going to let him explain a little bit more of that and share with you how cool and different this opportunity could be for you.
Guys, what's up? My name's Jamie, and just as John said, I'm the creator of the podcast closing method. And in this video, I want to take you behind the scenes and show you kind of how this process works, and also tell you a little bit about how we did this for John inside of his company. Now, if you're not really familiar with podcast closing, I can't blame you. It's something that we created around about 3 years ago, and it's been a really powerful methodology that we've used to help over 300 plus different entrepreneurs both get their podcast into the top charts, but more importantly, turn that podcast into high ticket sales for their business. And in the next kind of clip, I've got an amazing process to show you that I didn't really record for anybody but myself. It was really a documentation for us as we made a big shift in our company and we started to implement these changes for ourselves. Now, the reason I'm showing this video today with you guys here is that in the last 3 months, we actually started working with John within Evolvepreneur to set up this podcast closing process for him and his team. And the results have been really spectacular. He's been able to get literally hundreds of leads coming in every single week. And on top of that, those leads are speaking to a trained salesperson within his team, and they're going to be turning into sales. And that's the really exciting part, is that this isn't just about generating leads, it's about generating high ticket sales for your business. Now, I'm not going to spoil the surprise of how it works. In the second, I'm going to swap over to the clip where I'm going to break down the entire process for you. But if you're an entrepreneur that knows that they need to get more leads into their business, that you need to get more sales coming in, a podcast is one of the simplest ways that you can attract the very best quality clients. And this is exactly what we helped John to do in the last 3 months by implementing a podcast setter into his business that takes podcast interviews every single week and turns them into booked calls for his business and into sales. So without any further ado, let me jump into the video. I want to take you guys behind this process, and I hope you really enjoy it as much as I enjoyed recording this process and showing you guys behind the scenes. Hey guys, what's up? Jamie Atkinson here, and I wanted to record this really quick video for you. Really for me, this isn't actually a video for you guys, because right now inside of our business, we're making a massive diversion from what we've always done inside of our business to be more in alignment with what we teach and actually help people to accomplish inside of their business. And so this is a really big change for me, because up until this point, I have been the online entrepreneur that has always been very visible. You know, we've been a lot about authority, perceived perception online, the Instagram following, the Facebook groups, the social engine that so many of us believe we have to have in order to run a successful business. And if I was really honest with you guys, I would tell you that I am absolutely fed up with it. Around about 6 months ago, I realized that showing up online was actually massively affecting my mental health. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the pursuit of what I was doing. And it was actually very much out of alignment with what I wanted to accomplish. And so in today's video, I want to kind of show you guys how I solved this problem for myself. And hopefully you guys can take something away from this inside of this process, because now what we are building is a system that actually relies on nothing when it comes to social media. We do not rely on any social media platform, no posts, no Facebook groups, no Facebook ads, nothing at all. We're simply using our authority, our podcast, and leveraging connections to be able to really build a multiple seven-figure business without having to show up. And the big desire for this came from me really wanting one thing in particular in my personal life, and I'm going to share this with you guys. And the one thing I wanted, and this is kind of a funny thing, but I wanted to be able to travel around the world, do amazing things without having to show up to calls all the time. And so this goes back for me like a couple of years ago when I was traveling in Bali, and remembered I was in Bali and there was like a 13-hour time difference. And so if it was 10 a.m. in like the US, it'd be like 11 p.m. in Bali. And this always screwed with me because it really messed up with my time zones. I couldn't actually go out and work, and I had to stay up until super late in the evening. And so what I wanted to create was a business that allows me to go and live, you know, this free lifestyle that I wanted to do, and doesn't actually require me to show up anywhere at any time to be live. And one of the really big problems that held me back from being able to do this was social media, because I understood, yes, I could hire a team. Yes, I could hire systems. Yeah, there's probably a couple things I could do to outsource this. But fundamentally, if I wanted to run my online business, I knew I needed to be posting on social media. So I decided to try and take it back to basics and understand, well, how can I solve this problem? How can I actually avoid the needing to go on social media? And how can I make sure that I can live my ideal lifestyle? And for me, my ideal lifestyle basically looked like, I want to be able to wake up in the morning and like do what I want. I want to be able to go walk on the beach, go for breakfast with my friends, not really have anything on the schedule. I don't want to do social media. I don't want to do any meetings. I didn't want to have to go live, or I didn't want to have to do any like coaching calls, or really be anywhere on a call at all. I never wanted to have to, you know, rely on my schedule in terms of doing these things. These are all things that I didn't want to have to do. And so throughout the day, really all I want to be able to do is go to a cafe in the day, you know, maybe do some writing, maybe write some emails, maybe, you know, connect with a few people. And that's kind of it. Like, that's all I wanted to be able to do inside of my business and be able to create, you know, in my own space. And so the thing that really drives me is the creativity, you know, being able to sit down, record videos like this, but I don't want to have to do it on some environment where I had to show up. I wanted to be able to do this on my own time. And so what I did was I looked at, okay, what are we doing inside of our business that can help me to accommodate this? And this is where I came up with the principle of the podcast closing teams. And so if you're not familiar with me, my name's Jamie Atkinson. Over the last 3 years, we've helped over 320 entrepreneurs basically create highly profitable podcasts with very small audiences. Most of our podcasts clients have less than 1,000 downloads a month, but are averaging $10,000 to $20,000 a month or higher with their podcast itself. And what we're actually showing you guys today with podcast closing teams is actually going to be more akin to 6 and 7 figure businesses, basically showing you how to use podcasts to build $100,000 to $200,000 to $300,000 months without you actually having to be involved, right? Without you having to be there. So you can go and do all the cool shit that you want to do. I like to surf. I like to hang out with my friends. I like to go to coffee shops, drink coffee, and read about cryptocurrency. I like to do weird stuff like that. I don't want to be working inside of my business. So when we took it back to its basic form, what we do inside of our business is a principle that we call podcast closing. And podcast closing is incredibly simple. It's probably the simplest thing that we've ever created. And first thing that we do in step 1 is we want to attract a dream customer. And so this is primarily for high ticket businesses. We want to attract our dream customer over here. Let me move this up to the top so you guys can see a bit better. So attract a dream customer. And what we're going to do is we're going to attract them to an interview. So we go out either via emails or personal invitation, or you could do this on social media if you want to, but we're getting away from that. What we want to do is go and invite our dream customer to come onto a podcast episode. And so if your dream customer is 6-figure entrepreneurs who are struggling in their dating life, they're struggling to find a partner, you could invite them to your podcast to talk to them about those challenges, the challenges of running a successful business while dating, the challenges of building a successful YouTube channel while trying to run a big team. And so after we've interviewed them and we invite them to the interview, the second piece that we want to do is we want to actually conduct the interview. And so when we conduct the interview, what we're then doing is we're really trying to build rapport with the prospect. But what we're also doing during that interview period is we are seeding the idea of our product. We're building curiosity about what it is that we do. And so if I was to go and do a podcast interview with a prospect, what I would probably do on that podcast interview is talk about this podcast closing process. We would talk about what we're doing to help people make money when it comes to podcasting. And at the end of that interview, that person is going to be very likely to then ask me questions about that process if I've built up enough curiosity. And then the third thing that we do inside of this process is that once we get to the end of the interview, so once the interview has actually been completed, what we then do is we transition them to a sales call. And usually this is a very simple process because we've built up rapport and because we've built curiosity. A lot of people ask us to get onto a sales call. We don't even have to pitch it, but we transition and we get them to go onto a sales call. And so just to give you guys some numbers here, we have a lot of clients, a lot of students where they may do, let's say they do 10 interviews in a week. We're probably going to get 5 of them to come onto sales calls. And usually we're going to be closing 40% or higher of those into deals. And so, you might find that you close 2 deals from those interviews that come in. So if you're selling a high ticket product, let's say you sell a $6,000 product, you're talking $12K a week. It's about $50K a month in revenue. And that's just from doing 10 30-minute interviews in a week. You're closing 50% into a sales call, and you're closing about 40% into the deal itself. And so this is what we do. This is what we've done day in, day out for the last 3 years plus. And this is how we've helped our clients literally make millions of dollars. It's a very, very simple framework. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand how it works. However, it does take a lot of skill and a lot of understanding to be able to do this effectively. That's why we've been able to build a really great business on the back of teaching people how to do this effectively, and more importantly, how to do it fast. A lot of people could probably figure this out over the course of a year and doing hundreds of interviews and just trialing, erroring, and figuring it out. But what we give people is access to speed. But one of the key variables of podcast closing, and this is the really big limitation, this is the problem with this process that we teach, is that you as the interviewer are limited by your time. So if you are the person that's going out and doing these interviews, and you also happen to be the owner of the business, the problem is your time and availability. And this is the big problem I've had in my own business with following this closing process as we grew our business. And so this is, for me, where a lot of disparity came from, a little bit of a, dis-ease, not feeling good, because the very thing that I teach people how to do, we weren't doing in my own business, right? There was a lot of incongruency inside of my mind when we were doing this methodology. And the problem was, as a business owner, I got really busy. And so I didn't have 10 to 20 to 30 hours a week to go and spend doing interviews, right? And maybe in your business, you're in the same position. If we were at the point where we're doing, for example, $50,000 a month, I need to be able to leverage my time better. And so this is really the big, big problem with this methodology, is that it doesn't work if you are actually really successful inside of your business, until I discovered a way that we can actually make this very scalable. And this is how we're actually getting away from using social media and scaling our business massively using this approach. And so all we do is that instead of me, the owner, going out and doing the interviews, which, as we know, is very effective, but we run into scale issues where you don't have enough time, what we do is we make a transition and we actually hire somebody to do this role for us. And so we hire someone to host the podcast. And as they host the podcast, they are going to be doing the same thing we were talking about. They're going to be doing the interview. They're going to be offering the sales call. And then we are going to be doing the sales call and then closing the deal and making money on the end. Now, one thing that is fantastic about changing this approach is that hiring people is infinitely more scalable than doing something for yourself. The other thing that's really powerful about this is that when you look at a lot of advertising models, the cost to advertise often fluctuates. And so what do I mean by this? Well, let's say, for example, you're running ads. 1 week, it may be costing you $1,500 to acquire a customer. So cost to acquire a customer, a CAC. And then the next week, it may go up and it may be $2,500. And the next week, it may be $3,500. And so the cost to acquire the customer may increase over time. And the reason that your cost may increase when you're using something variable like ads can be a multitude of things. It can be the ad cost. It can be your salesperson's closing percentage, right? If, for example, they close at 20% one week and 30% the next, you have to have more or less ads coming through to be able to have the same success. And so it's very variable, right, when you're looking at the costs. What we've discovered and why we're going through this approach is that if we hire someone to host the podcast, it is a fixed cost to acquire that customer. And so, for example, we have our little guy over here, and he's going out and he's doing interviews, right? And so he's doing, let's say he's doing 30-minute interviews in a week, which is actually very easy for us to kind of create that output. That's 15 hours a week. Now, you could hire this person for, say, 30 hours a week. And so he's going to be doing 15 hours of actual just interviews. And then the rest of the time, he's maybe going to be doing things like follow-up, like any traditional salesperson, appointment setter style role would be able to do. Now, the really cool thing about this is let's take the same numbers we were talking about a second ago that most of our clients are doing. And I actually have a few clients who are doing this kind of level. And so you do 30 interviews with your dream clients every single week. And if you do an okay job at this, you get about half of those people to get onto a sales call. Now, just for context, guys, we have a lot of our clients who are actually achieving 90% plus with our podcast closing ratio. So that means if they do 10 interviews, 9 people are saying yes to getting onto a sales call. Now, from these 15 sales calls that are happening, let's just say we have a average kind of closing ratio of about 30%, then that means that we are going to be having about 4 to 5 sales that are coming in from these interviews. And so again, if you sell a $6,000 product, we're talking about $24,000 to $30,000 in revenue a week from this one person that you hire, which is pretty exciting when you start to look at these numbers because you can have multiple people that you hire for this role. Now, here's the reason it's fixed cost for acquisition. Just like any sales role, you can decide how much you want to pay your setter. And so your setter that comes in, this is the person that's doing your podcast interviews. This is the person that we're hiring. That person, we may pay them 5%, 3%, 7%, whatever you want to pay them. For me personally, I'm going to put this down as 7.5%. And so I'm going to pay my setter 7.5% of all the closed deals. And so this is only if we close a deal. And then my salesperson, who's actually taking the sales call, maybe I'm paying him 10%. So what I know is no matter how many people I hire, how many variables there are in the marketplace, whatever else is going on, I know that I'm always going to pay 17.5% for my customers. And so the smart amongst you realize this means that we've got 82.5% in gross profit from just acquiring our customers. And what we're going to be doing is actually using this methodology, and we're not going to require to run ads. We're not going to need to do any kind of outreach. We're actually going to be able to acquire a lot of traffic in a very, very simple way. And so just to give you guys some context of what is this worth to you, well, let's just take this example above here. So let's say we hire one person, and we're going to call them a podcast close setter. And so all they're going to do all day is interview dream prospects, talk about their problems on a podcast, and make them an offer to get onto a sales call. We know that they're going to be producing around about $100,000 to $120,000 in revenue a month, standalone just by themselves. Now, we also know it's going to cost us, let's just make it easy numbers, 20% of that is going to be hard costs, right? And so we know that we're going to be making about 80K to maybe 100K in profit from each of these people that we hire. And so just from that on the get-go, we are talking about 1.2 million to about 1.4 million in revenue that will get generated from one hire. Now, if they are a bad hire, they're somebody that doesn't do the job effectively, they aren't going to be sufficient or sophisticated in this role, then you don't pay anything. because you're only paying them on successful closed deals. Now, this is the model that we're going to be using inside of our business. And what we're doing is we're going to be getting 3 podcast close setters initially, and they're going to be coming in, and collectively between them are going to be initially doing around about 20 interviews each a week. And then over time, they're going to be scaling up and beyond that. And each person that we bring in and hire should be worth the equivalent of about $600,000 to $800,000 a year in top line revenue, and around about $450,000 to $500,000 in profit just from each of these different hires. Now, this process is our podcast close team setting process. We're going to be building out this team for ourselves. This is what we're going to be able to do. And what's going to be great about this is that we do not need to be on social media at all. We can literally reach out within our network. We can reach out to collaborators, and we can reach out to any number of people, because the offer is very powerful. What is our offer? How do we get people into this funnel? How do we find the people to interview? We are literally going to go out and say, hey, we would love to interview you on our podcast. Do you want to come and get featured on our podcast? And so the offer is something that's highly valuable to the prospect. They want to get featured. They want to get interviewed on a top 100 podcast. They want to come and get attracted to you. And the difference between somebody saying yes to a podcast interview and yes to a sales call is drastic. When we've tested this in our organic markets, we found that about 5% of people will say yes to a sales call, but 80% of people will say yes to a podcast interview. And in another video, maybe I'll start to document our traffic process of how we're filling our funnels for this and getting enough people to come in so that we have 60 people that we can interview every single week. I can do a separate video on that. But this is the process that we're going to be going through over the coming weeks and the coming months to scale our business to multiple 7 figures without me really having to do anything. Purely my role within this is going to be guiding the marketing team on how to attract the people that will be coming onto the interviews. My role is going to be training these podcast close setters to be able to set appointments, doing the podcast interviews and teaching this process, and, making sure that my sales team is operating, running at the highest level. But again, I have people in place that we hire for this process. Now, if this is something that's interesting to you, and maybe you're a business that's looking to scale to multiple 7 figures, maybe you already have a sales team in place and you're looking for ways to which you can grow, this entire process is something that we're going to be actually selling in the future. This is going to be a $100,000 offer that we're going to put together for me to come in as a done-for-you agent to basically come and build a podcast sales team for you. When we put this offer together, we're going to be taking 10% of all of the commission that we generate, all of the sales that we generate, as well as charging people $100,000 up front, because this will literally create a new distribution channel for you and for your business. And it's a really powerful way to enhance your existing business as well. But right now, because I'm just putting this together for myself, I'm actually just looking for 2 clients. I just want 2 people to actually come out inside of this beta and to help me build this process for you. And so I want to create this for myself, but I also want to create it for 2 clients at the same time as well. And so if you're somebody that wants me to come in to do this exact process inside of your business to help you to recruit the people, to put it together, then go on and click the link down below inside of this video. And you can just send me an Instagram message or a message on Facebook Messenger and tell me, Jamie, I'm interested in a podcast closing sales team, and I'll chat with you about whether you'd be a good fit. And we can talk about what it would take for me to build one of these podcast closing teams for yourself. But right now, we're just looking for 2 clients to take on board for this. And we're going to be doing it for a lot less than the $100,000 that we're going to charge in the future, because I just want to get a couple of beta clients to come in that we can teach this process for. So if you're interested and you would like me to help you build out one of these teams for yourself, then reach out. And after we get these 2 people coming in, we're actually going to be closing it down. We probably aren't going to reopen this offer for 6 months as we go about just building this for ourselves and for those 2 clients. So we can have some success and some results. So guys, I hope this video was useful for you. As always, I love to just document this process and show you guys exactly what's going on, how we're building our business, and what we're doing to get to the next level. If you're interested in understanding more about how to create these podcast closing teams, then reach out and let me know. And if not, I'm excited to catch you on the next video. All right, see you soon.